Good morning, guys. Wandering Beast here, and what I'm going to try to do today is simplify a video that I was sitting down this morning trying to edit, and I realized it's very long and involved, and I think it's a little bit more than you guys want to actually sit and watch. So I'm going to break this up into kind of two sections of the video. Today's video is going to be, I think, one of the top best modifications you can do to a diesel heater. I don't care if it's a hydronic heater, an air heater, a $1,500 heater, or a $100 Chinese diesel heater. They all need fuel, and the tanks that come with these are absolutely horrible. They will leak. They will not work properly. They don't hold things well. They're made not so great. And this includes the nicer $1,500 tanks. They are not that dissimilar. So I think to do yourself a service, if you are not going to run a line into your diesel tank, which a lot of people do, and some of the newer vans and things out there do have an auxiliary setup for that already. So I know some of you are like Pro Masters, you guys can just kind of pull a hatch in between your driver's seat, I believe, and get to the gas tank and access stuff. I'm not sure on the specifics, but if you're going directly to the tank with a straw and it's feeding off your regular tank, this video is not going to be for you. So if you are still running the stupid little plastic tank that you got with it, get rid of it. I used it for one winter and soon realized that the capacity is very small. You're going to be filling it a lot. If you're going to store it inside the vehicle, then you have to fill it inside the vehicle. And it's just not ideal. So what I wanted was something a little bit more robust. I wanted an aluminum tank. And if you go on Amazon, you can find a bunch of fuel cells. If you just Google fuel cells, you're going to find a number of them. Find one that suits the size and dimensions and the amounts that you want and go from there. The one I happened to find was a little bit bigger than I needed. It was a 17-gallon tank. It has 3 fuel pickups on the sides, or on the top. It has a standard sort of racing fuel 10-bolt, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which I was part of my box that I was trying to tick was I wanted one of those because I wanted to be able to adjust it and feed some other stuff. And we'll talk about that as we go. But talking about just finding a good fuel cell. Now, some of them will have connections on the bottom front, and some of you may be okay with that. But if you know your diesel tank or your heater comes with effectively a little straw, and that's for putting in other tanks, right? So you're pulling from the top. That way you don't have an opening at the bottom. That's one of the things I hated. I could never keep it from seeping. It didn't really leak. It just weeped and seeped, and I could not get that thing tight enough or sealed enough to keep from doing that. So I've tried to avoid putting any connections on the bottom. I want to come in from the top on all this stuff, and I'm going to run a straw all the way to the bottom. Just like your fuel pickup on any of your cars, your fuel sending unit is on the top of your gas tank. In your minivan, in your car, in your truck, doesn't matter. The fuel comes out of a straw and goes to the engine, and that's kind of what I want to replicate for our heaters. Now, like I said, a lot of these will have 3 ports on the top, 2 or 3 ports, and that's because oftentimes modern cars need a fuel out, and any fuel that's not being used by the engine ports back and dumps back into the tank. So they've designed it that way, and you can pick up various fittings for AN8 or AN10 fittings for that, as well as the one I chose also has a fuel sender. So it's going to have a little arm in there that'll tell you how much you have in the tank, because you can't see it. It's not clear plastic anymore. This is metal. My only gripe with the one that I happen to purchase, which I'll put in photos as we talk, is that it doesn't have any attachment points. There's some of the smaller 5-gallon ones will have little ears on the side that you can drill through and you can mount it with stuff. This one didn't, so I had to build a mount for it. And the first ones I did were just some wood 2x2s, and I screwed them down and to kind of keep it from sliding, and then I ratchet strapped it to there as a temporary fix to see if I even liked it. Long story short, it was fantastic. So I had to come up with a solution. So what I ended up doing is I welded some arms out because the wood blocks, even with that much weight and down on corrugated roads, started to bend the nails, started to push out, started to wobble a little bit more than they should have. So what I did is I just made a couple steel arms off of my benches, and that was going to hold it from going side to side. And then I made a cradle, an H cradle for the top of it, and I went right down over the top, and I ran all thread through the back of effectively my bench frame, and then the other 2 went through framing and they went to a plate underneath the truck. So that thing's not going anywhere. Not only is it clamped securely down to the bus, but then just those little arms will help each side. I also took care to put a little bit of felt and some rubber in places so I wasn't rubbing solid steel on that soft aluminum fuel cell, and that has worked out really well. I also had plans to do multiple fuel or heaters. So we did an air heater a long time ago, and then recently this last winter I installed a hydronic heater that's going to be heating up the coolant of the engine as well as giving me hot water and secondary heating through a small radiator. So each of those got their own supply lines. Everything got vented down. The only other thing I did as an upgrade this winter is I decided to do what everyone online says and replace the green flexible line that comes with a lot of those diesel heaters with the hard plastic 2mm line. There's a lot of science behind it, and a lot of people swear that that's the way they were designed to be used. I will let you know, for over a year and a half, I used the soft flexible green line. I had zero issues with it. My heater always ran fine. But I decided when I'm going through all this process, I'll replace it with the proper line. I will tell you, I hated it. I had more kinks. I had more issues with it rubbing holes on stuff and just getting burnt out. I had to go trace down leaks. And the thing is, when you create that 2mm line, you'll see photos that they put in, you have to use a small fuel line with 2 clamps on each end. So if you splice in a little piece, you're going to need 4 clamps, 2 on each side of 2 pieces of hose. That's not ideal. The green stuff was easy. You could put a barb on them, you could put a clamp, you didn't need anything. I will say that soft green line, I'm keeping in my toolbox because, I'll put in a photo here, you can use it on the outside of that line, acting as the big black fuel line if you need to go. So for temporary testing, I ran from the hard line from the green line, and they go right into each other. And that was great. So I think what I'm going to do is carry some of that green stuff as act as a temporary fix. So if I have a blowout or a kink or a burn and it starts leaking, I'll just cut that off and shove some green line in there, and I'll be good to go down the road. All right, now last but not least, one of the things I still wanted to solve was I wanted to be able to fill this tank up from the outside. And so that goes back to why I wanted that 10-bolt standard racing cell top. It has a little screw off top. So what I did is I took all the threads and I sanded that down with my grinder so that it could fit a standard 1.5-inch filler neck. That filler neck is a 45-degree angle, and that's going to go into kind of a marine grade fuel filler up that's going to go to the outside. Let's see how well that worked. Alright, you can kind of see stock filler neck where I fill up gas with diesel, and now this is going to be the secondary little filler area. Now, because I fabricated all these walls, if you guys are just finding these videos, years ago we took out all the schoolie windows and I fabricated all this stuff up. Now I know that I have a metal beam right there, and in fact I was right on that beam. I'm not sure if you can see, I'll get some light in there. You can see that little metal beam is right there. You can also see how thick all my insulation is. Alright, this gives you an idea of what I built the bus out of. A little bit of steel on the outside that goes into 1/8-inch mahogany, into 1.5 inches of foam. Some of it is polyiso, but a lot of it is this standard just pink foam from Home Depot into your standard like bubble wrap insulation, and then this press board is the last piece. So because this angle's down so dramatically, I'll probably have to cut the hole a little bit bigger on the inside just to fit this angle.
So I usually go as an instructor to these, but I always learn a ton. You know, you get people coming over from Australia and the Netherlands, and it's like they have tricks and equipment. And
well, you can see how thick my walls are, how well that worked. The only thing that I'm going to modify right now is, you saw in that video, the cap is captured, so it comes out on a little dangly thing. The problem is the little tab in the back of the filler that holds that chain, that retains that cap, gets in the way of filling up diesel. And I don't know why, if it's designed to be on a marine deck straight down, so you're just going straight down, but I cannot get a fuel filler from any gas station to go in there and bypass that little tab that's holding that chain to the filler neck. So I've got to take it off again, and I've got to grind that off, and I will just merely make sure that my gas tank is on there. It has not tried to work its way out in the 6 months that I've had it on there. So that is one modification I still have to do. But other than that, all the theory and everything works really well. You know, I put diesel in to the truck, you raise it up, you unscrew it, you put diesel into the heater. I have not run it so much that it clicks off because I don't necessarily want fuel in that top filler neck. So it's more of a guesstimation of how many gallons I'm going to need in there. But I will say overall, having 17 gallons of heater fuel has been a huge bonus for long trips, for running it all day, to running the new hydronic heater, to running them both at the same time. And I still am not touching the fuel that is in my truck. My truck is own fuel tank. It's not being touched in there. But the next video we're going to talk about is what if I want to use some of that diesel. We've already talked about why I've taken the Rotopacks off of the back. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how we can use that 17 gallons in an emergency for the truck.
Thanks for all the love and support. You guys are amazing. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow the adventure on social media, and we'll see you on the